Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome back to PandaAudioBooks, your sanctuary for ancient magic and the pursuit of the truth. Today, we delve into chapters 241 through 245 of Pursuit of the Truth. Su Ming has stepped out of the freezing wind and into the heart of an ancient remnant. Here, the air is still, but the walls hum with a power that predates the modern berserker tribes. As Su Ming touches relics that have been cold for millennia, he begins to see visions that blur the line between the past and the present. In the darkness of the ruins, the truth is waiting to be heard. Beginning chapter 241. Chapter 241. Xianxia Su Ming was about to turn around and walk towards Hu Zi when he paused for a moment, but it was just for a moment. He did not even turn his head back before coming down to the ground towards the snoring Hu Zi. When Bai Su saw Su Ming turn a deaf ear towards her, she frowned and came to despise him. She turned around and went in the direction Sai Ma Xin had left. Her movements were elegant, and when she turned around and left, her body moved in the wind in a manner overflowing with wild beauty. Even now, Su Ming did not turn his head back to look at Bai Su. This girl was no different from anyone else to him. The only thing special about her was her face that was incredibly similar to Bai Ling's, which caused a wave of emotions in him previously. Yet now, that wave had returned to stillness. There was still some uncertainty in his heart, but it was not about Bai Su, it was the attitude of the Fourth Summit's left preceptor. The words he uttered just now clearly held the implications of him somewhat siding with Su Ming. I'm not close with the left preceptor, so why did he do that? Su Ming's eyes sparkled and his master, Xianxia, appeared in his mind. Hu Zi was still snoring on the ground and there was quite a large amount of drool that had flowed out of his mouth. There was even a silly grin on his face, as if he was having the time of his life in his dream. Xianxia stood by his side respectfully, and once Su Ming got closer, he immediately wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed to him. Greetings, Uncle Master Su. His respect did not seem faked but came from within his heart. Once he saw Su Ming's battle against Sai Ma Xin, he felt fortunate that he had run into Su Ming's second senior when he went to try and attack him. Xianxia had no confidence that he could win against Su Ming at all if he had fought against him and come face to face with all the mystical abilities he just saw. He could actually force Sai Ma Xin to use the great art of Heartless Berserker Seed. This Su Ming will definitely be an extraordinary presence in Freezing Sky Clan in the future. Xianxia was certain of this. When he remembered the killing intent he felt on Su Ming's body and the calm tone he used when he was in Hu Zi's cave abode, that respect turned into reverence. Su Ming nodded his head. The moment his feet touched the ground, he foam charged back from the sky, looking rather roughed up. When Sai Ma Xin left, the soul of the Ice Wolf also left with him. At that moment, as he foam came back to Su Ming, his body was trembling slightly, but there was an even deeper reverence within his eyes compared to Xianxia's when he looked at Su Ming. He could be said to have watched Su Ming arrive at this state since he was still weak. The person before him now was completely different from the Su Ming in the past. It was precisely because he had witnessed his growth that his respect towards Su Ming was much stronger and deeper compared to the others. He knew that Su Ming was not a foolishly kind person. His actions could be vicious, and if anyone offended him, he would definitely take revenge. Master, he foam bowed deeply towards Su Ming with an ashamed look on his face. Master, my power could not compare to the wolf spirits, but don't worry, I'll definitely train hard and become your right hand in the future. I definitely won't let you down. He foam lifted his head and patted his chest as he made his promise. You should come back now. Su Ming cast he foam a look before lifting his right hand and clenching his fist towards the sky. Both Spirit Plunder and Han Mountain Bell charged back instantly and spun around Su Ming a few times before he put Spirit Plunder back into his storage bag while Han Mountain Bell fused into his body and disappeared from sight. He foam too quickly disappeared. Only when they were all gone did Su Ming turn around and look towards the goal of his trip this time, the artifact storage hall behind him. At that moment, standing outside the artifact storage hall was the man whom Hu Zi called a woman disguising herself as a man by pointing and practically shouting at him. When she saw Su Ming looking over, there was a great difference in her expression compared to when she looked at him before Sai Ma Xin's return. Her expression before had been filled with disgust and resignation, and if she could, she would have avoided them like the plague. Since she disliked Hu Zi, all those who came with him were also hated. Yet now, There was respect on her face. When Su Ming's gaze fell on her, she immediately took a few steps forward and bowed deeply towards him with her fist wrapped in her palm. I am Chen Xiong. Greetings, Uncle Master Su. Chen Xiong was actually very beautiful and looked as pretty as a picture. However, under careful disguise, Chen Xiong's skin was rather dark, which made it seem like a pearl that had its shine hidden away, causing others to be unable to tell whether Chen Xiong was a man or a woman at first glance. She was also wearing a loose robe that hid the lines of her body. If Hu Zi had not mentioned that this person was actually a woman pretending to be a man, Su Ming would not have been able to find any clues about it. Yet when his gaze fell upon this person, he gradually saw some hints. However, he did not stare for a long time. He averted his gaze very soon. I'd like to enter the artifact storage hall and choose some papers. I hope you'll allow me to do so. Su Ming did not put on the airs of an uncle master as he spoke unhurriedly towards the other person. Chen Xiong quickly nodded and took a few steps back to open the path with a respectful look. Uncle Master Su, this way, please. I usually manage the artifact storage hall. Please wait inside for a moment. I'll bring the papers you need now. Under Chen Xiong's guidance, Su Ming walked into the artifact storage hall. As for Xianxia, he remained outside taking care of the snoring Hu Zi. Without Su Ming's permission, he did not dare follow behind him. Perhaps before Su Ming fought against Sima Xin, Xianxia would have still done so, but it would not have been a matter of whether he dared or dared not follow Su Ming. Yet now, when he witnessed the might of Su Ming's power, Xianxia had a sudden change of impression towards the 9th summit. In his eyes, all the people in that summit were weird, but even if they were weird, everyone besides Hu Zi should be powerful berserkers. That gentle man who loved flowers was so. Su Ming, whose killing intent was revealed just now, was also a powerful berserker. There was also their eldest senior fellow disciple, the person who was in constant isolation. By Xianxia's assumptions, this person should be an even more powerful existence. This is the true 9th summit. The other rumors are all fake. Only when you've entered the 9th summit will you be able to understand the terrors of the oddities. Staying, the Xianxia sucked in a deep breath. He had a feeling that perhaps entering the 9th summit this way might not actually be something bad for him. It might even be a sort of chance for him. While he was immersed in his thoughts, Hu Zi's rhythmic snores fell into his ears. That sound might not seem loud in broad daylight, but in the quiet night, if anyone heard that sound in the forest, they would definitely think it was some big insect or a ferocious beast, and their expressions would definitely change to that of fear. Those snores were like roars that sounded like rumbles when it fell into a person's ears. Xianxia turned his head around and cast Hu Zi a look, and curiosity gradually appeared in his eyes. This person is most likely not someone mediocre as well. He remembered how this man had grabbed his hands when he was in his cave abode and forced him into deep slumber. The things that had happened in his dreams made his face gradually turn pale. Entering dreams, if he could bring any person into his dream anytime he wanted, then his power would be terrifying. They are monsters. All the people in the 9th summit are monsters. The more Xianxia thought about it, the more shocked he was, yet similarly, the more shocked he was, the more tempted he became. Su Ming sat in one of the chairs in the artifact storage hall. There was an oil lamp on the table by his side. It might still be bright outside, but the light from the fire still let out a light that spread to its surroundings. The artifact storage hall was not very big, but it was not small either. There were rows upon rows of shelves stocked with all sorts of things. Some of them looked slightly broken and worn down, while others still looked new. He could see Chen Xiong's body occasionally flitting through the shelves. She was walking through them briskly and picking out different types of papers from the shelves. After a moment, she brought the papers before Su Ming and placed them respectfully on the table, then took a few steps back and whispered with his head lowered, "Uncle Master Su, the items in the artifact storage hall are not complete. We only have these types of papers here. Please take a look to see which one you want, and I'll bring more of it for you. These papers are used by the disciples from the other summits for recording purposes. If you think it's not enough, we still have bamboo slips in store." As Chen Xiong spoke, she started sizing up Su Ming from the corners of her eyes. Su Ming nodded his head and looked at the papers on the table. Most of them were rough and dark brown in color. Some of them were even of a quality worse than beast skins. When Chen Xiong saw a light crease appear between Su Ming's brows, she quickly said, Uncle Master Su, we only have these here. You could take a look around and see whether you can find anything to replace these papers. Su Ming got up when he heard the words and walked towards the shelves. Before he walked too far away, he suddenly stopped and pointed towards an item at his side as he looked at Chen Xiong. How many of these do you have? Chen Xiong followed behind Su Ming and immediately turned towards where he was pointing. She saw a white wooden block about the length of an arm and the breadth of a palm on the shelf. Its color was so white that it seemed spotlessly clean. This is solid white wood. This sort of wood doesn't exist around Freezing Sky Clan. It's rumored that it's only produced in a place hundreds of thousands of leagues to the east of Freezing Sky Clan. Since the color is nice, it's usually used to make chairs. I have some of this wood here. While speaking, Chen Xiong quickly took a few steps forward and brought out several wooden blocks of the same type. Uncle Master Su, these are the only ones we have. Thank you. That will be enough. Su Ming smiled faintly and took the white pieces of wood. With a flick of his right wrist, these wooden blocks instantly disappeared and were put away into his storage bag. About the price for these wooden blocks, Su Ming looked at Chen Xiong and found himself not knowing what to say. Uncle Master Su, you're being too distant. You just arrived in Freezing Sky Clan. These things aren't really expensive, so I can still make the decision on how to deal with them. You can just take them away. Chen Xiong quickly waved the question away and smiled. In Su Ming's eyes, that smile now revealed hints that Chen Xiong was truly a woman pretending to be a man. However, he believed that Hu Zi was not the first to see through this. Everyone had their own secrets and stories they did not want to tell others. There must be a reason as to why Chen Xiong always dressed up this way in Freezing Sky Clan. Thank you. Su Ming did not reject the offer and nodded towards Chen Xiong. Oh, that's right. Uncle Master Su, you must be thinking about making your own wooden slips from that solid white wood. If that's the case, you'll need some special string. As Chen Xiong spoke, she brought out a white reel of thread and gave it to Su Ming. When I was looking for the other solid white wood, I saw this. It has been lying around the hall for many years. I heard that it's the tendon from a ferocious beast and is very sturdy. It'll definitely be able to connect the wooden slips together. Su Ming did not take it. Instead, he looked at Chen Xiong with the ghost of a smile on his lips. If this person had decided to give him the wooden blocks, he could still marginally think of it as Chen Xiong trying to express goodwill to him. Yet if she wanted to give him the beast's tendon, then this was definitely not something as simple as trying to get into his good graces. After all, Su Ming did not really fit into the description of an uncle master. When Chen Xiong saw that expression on Su Ming's face, an awkward look appeared on her face. After a moment of hesitation, she gritted her teeth and bowed deeply towards Su Ming. Uncle Master Su, please help me. Chapter 242. Chen Xiong's request. Su Ming did not speak immediately but stood in the hall and stared at Chen Xiong. There was a sharp glint in his eyes, and when Chen Xiong saw that glint, she felt as if she had been seen through and her darkest secrets were revealed. Chen Xiong shuddered and lowered her head because she did not dare look into his eyes. She took a few steps back once again. Speak. I'll consider it, Su Ming said calmly, his words unhurried. If you're willing to help me, Uncle Master Su, then it'll definitely work. Chen Xiong bit her bottom lip. Her current look made her unconsciously reveal more of her feminine characteristics. Uncle Master Su, please help me make Uncle Master Sun Die who stopped sneaking outside my room at midnight to peek. I really can't get used to it, Chen Xiong whispered, finally managing to speak of her request in a more tactful manner. Once she finished speaking, she bent her body and bowed towards Su Ming. Uncle Master Su, please help me. Su Ming's expression instantly turned strange. He had thought of a lot of possibilities, but he absolutely did not expect Chen Xiong to give him the wooden blocks and tendons for this. From this alone, it could be seen just how much trauma Hu Zi had left in the hearts of the people. When he recalled what had happened when Hu Zi brought him here from the 9th summit up to the point he fell asleep, Su Ming could not help but laugh wryly. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he spoke his thoughts. I'll try my best to persuade him from it, but I can't promise you success. He too would not like someone crouching around him at night watching his every move. When he remembered the strange smile on Hu Zi's face when he was peeking at his second senior brother, It was not difficult for Su Ming to think of that smile on Hu Zi's face while he was peeking at other people as well. He cast a pitying glance at Xianxia. When she heard Su Ming's words, gratitude instantly appeared on her face. That gratitude was not a show but came from within the depths of her heart, which just went to show just how deeply affected she was by Hu Zi's harassment. Removing Uncle Master Hu Zi, whose presence was really just like that of a nightmare at night to her, was the most important thing to Xianxia at the moment. Amidst her gratitude and respect, Su Ming walked out of the artifact storage hall. Xianxia followed behind him and gave a deep bow towards Su Ming. The eager look in her eyes made Su Ming instinctively look towards the snoring Hu Zi behind Xianxia, who were both located not too far away from him. "I'll try my best." Su Ming nodded at Xianxia and walked towards Hu Zi. Once he had him in his arms, he took a step into the air and turned into a long arc that charged back to the 9th summit. Xianxia quickly followed behind him and looked at Su Ming's back before him. Resolution appeared in his eyes. With Su Ming in front and Xianxia following behind him, the two of them soon arrived at the 9th summit from the buildings underneath Heaven Gate. On the way, Su Ming ran into some freezing Sky Clan disciples. Once these people saw him, those who recognized him would immediately stop and wrap their fists in their palms to greet him. They only started moving again when Su Ming left. The people who called him Uncle Master Su were not many, but it was way different compared to how he had been treated previously. If there were some who did not understand what was happening while they stood beside those who did, they would quickly ask in low whispers. Once they obtained the answer, disbelief would appear on their faces, and their gazes that followed Su Ming would become different. After a moment, when the 9th summit appeared before Su Ming's eyes, he and Xianxia quickly arrived to Hu Zi's cave abode. Su Ming landed outside and brought Hu Zi inside before placing him down on the spot he usually slept. As he looked at the loudly snoring Hu Zi, a smile appeared on Su Ming's face. He grabbed a wine gourd by the side and placed it where Hu Zi could reach it before turning around and leaving. Xianxia was standing respectfully outside the cave. When he saw Su Ming coming out, he immediately lowered his head, looking as if he was waiting for his orders. "I originally wanted to turn you into medicinal liquid." Su Ming's gaze fell upon Xianxia. Xianxia was silent. There was an awkward look on his face, and he kept silent with his head lowered. "But if you can get me 2 people who are nearly dead, then I'll get rid of that thought," Su Ming stated calmly. He had already made his decision. The most important thing for him to do while he was in freezing Sky Clan's 9th summit was to train. He must make himself stronger. Only by doing so could he win against Sai Ma Xin in the short run, and in the long run, walk out of Sky Mist Barrier and out of the land of South Morning. All of these required him to be powerful. The battle with Sai Ma Xin may have made them seem as if they were equals, but Su Ming knew that he had lost during that battle. If his master had not intervened and given him enough time to copy the power of the world contained within the sword stroke, he would have definitely lost when that sword struck down. Even with Xianxia's help, Su Ming still felt a strong sense of danger looming over his head when Sai Ma Xin casted the great art of Heartless Berserker Seed, and that danger was not something he could dissolve with his current power. Even if he still had one treasure left, not having brought out the fire ice his eldest senior brother had given him, that thing was still considered an external object and did not come from within him. All these made Su Ming clearly understand that his power was still very weak in his current state. He would not even be able to leave Sky Mist Barrier, much less go back home. He would not even be able to have an easy time in freezing Sky Clan. These thoughts had been circulating in Su Ming's mind all the way back. "Uncle Master Su, it won't be difficult to obtain people who are nearly dead. I promise you, within 3 years, I'll definitely be able to obtain 2 living corpses with incredible power for you. The shamans outside Sky Mist Barrier are the best choice," Xianxia quickly said with a respectful tone. While Xianxia was speaking, Su Ming had already walked into the distance with his back towards him, as if he did not hear the other's voice. As he continued walking forward, it made Xianxia anxious and worried. When Su Ming was about to disappear from his sight, the man's slow voice reached his ears. "I'm lacking a person guarding my cave abode at night. If you want to, then come with me." Xianxia felt his spirits lift and immediately shouted loudly, "I want to." He was already moving when the words left his mouth and immediately followed behind Su Ming. They disappeared from Hu Zi's place. Su Ming returned to his cave abode. The simple cave now looked different in his eyes. There was now a slight hint of warmth there, and even a feeling of home. The platform outside the cave was covered with plants that could grow in ice and snow. However, there was a small spot on the platform that was left empty. That was the spot Su Ming had asked his second senior brother to leave empty for him to meditate. The green grass swayed in the freezing wind, as if struggling to survive in this biting cold environment. There was a resilient life force within it, and when he looked at it, Su Ming had a vague feeling that he was looking at his second senior brother. He suddenly understood why his second senior brother planted so many plants in most of the areas in the 9th summit. It was because he treated the mountain as his home, and his presence was just like the plants in the mountain. As long as there was a spot where his plants grew, that place would be labeled as his protected area. Take for example this place. There were no plants here before he came here, but once Su Ming built his cave abode, his second senior brother dropped by with his plants and covered the place with them. A silent heartwarming feeling seeped into Su Ming's heart as the plants and flowers swayed in the wind. He crouched down and looked at them with a smile on his face. This was a warmth he rarely felt after he arrived in the land of South Morning. The smile on his face was a reflection of the warmth he felt when he was in Dark Mountain. It had always been kept hidden in Su Ming's heart, but now, it appeared once again on his lips. Xianxia stood not too far respectfully as he kept an eye on Su Ming. When he saw that smile on his face, he was baffled. It was as if the person before him was no longer the person he respected, the one who had enough power to fight against Sima Xin, and the Uncle Master Su who was filled with a murderous aura, but instead a young man who had just reached adulthood and was still a little wet behind the ears. Yet that bafflement only lasted for an instant. When Su Ming stood up, that smile was gone, and the feeling Xianxia had, which might have been just his misconception, immediately vanished. The young man who had just become an adult was gone. In his place was the usual Uncle Master Su who had a murderous aura beneath his calm demeanor. Without my orders, do not enter the cave abode. Stay outside and wait for my orders. Su Ming's cold voice fell into Xianxia's ears as he walked towards his cave abode, which was still lacking a door. Aye. Xianxia immediately obeyed respectfully. He took a few steps back and retreated to a spot that had no wind before sitting down. A look of uncertainty and confusion appeared in his eyes for a moment before it was quickly replaced by resolution. 3 years, perhaps these 3 years won't be a disaster for me, but a form of serendipity, let's hope that's the case. Xianxia closed his eyes and sank into a meditative state. Nonetheless, his mind remained alert of his surroundings. Just like a guard, he performed his duties. Su Ming was also sitting inside his cave abode. The sky was gradually darkening outside. He slowly brought out the pieces of solid white wood he had obtained from the artifact storage hall and placed them in front of himself before also bringing out the beast tendon. The tendon had extremely great ductility. Even if he held only a small section of the tendon in his hand, he could still make it stretch out to incredible lengths. The pieces of solid white wood were not cut in the same length and size. Some of them were longer while some shorter. Some of them were about 3 fingers tall, and some at only the height of 2 fingers. Su Ming stared at those wooden pieces, and after remaining silent for a moment, he quickly lifted both of his hands and grabbed a piece of wood. With a flick of his wrist, many wooden scraps flew into the air. After a moment, he placed the piece of wood down and picked up another one. After a long while, once Su Ming had trimmed all of the wooden pieces, 9 wooden pieces lay before him. All of these blocks were about the length of his arm, the breadth of 5 fingers, and the height of 2 fingers. They all looked the same and were all white. With just one glance, it was difficult to determine whether they were wood or white jade. Once Su Ming placed the 9 pieces of wood together, a big drawing board appeared before him. There may have been very fine cracks between the wooden pieces, but if he used force and pressed against them, he could cover them up. Su Ming then brought out the beast tendon and green light shone at the center of his brows. The small sword flew towards the beast tendon and cut it up into several sections which he used to tie up the wooden pieces on his drawing board. Due to the ductility and flexibility of the tendon, the cracks on the drawing board disappeared, but if he used force to roll up this drawing board like he would do a piece of beast skin, then it would turn into a cylinder under that force. Chapter 243. The strange rod insect. Su Ming looked at the drawing board he had created, then lifted his right hand and gently stroked its surface. The drawing board was smooth, and he could not feel even a hint of roughness on it. "You'll be helping me understand the laws of creation in the world from now on," Su Ming mumbled and slowly closed his eyes. The world outside was already dark. As the chilling wind moaned in the air, it landed on the 9th summit and swept past the platform outside Su Ming's cave. Some of the wind even entered his cave and lifted his long hair. Su Ming had his eyes closed. He was not trying to reach any sort of epiphany, neither was he immersing himself in his training. His mind was blank. However, a girl gradually appeared in his empty mind. The girl had a beautiful laughter and her eyes twinkled, causing the others to be attracted by her charm when they saw her. As the girl's body gradually grew clearer, a wild beauty could be seen on her. She was like a flower refusing to be restrained and obstinately growing in a forest while giving out a natural and incredibly attractive fragrance. She was dressed in white robes, and she was looking at Su Ming with a smile. "Bai Ling Bai Su," he mumbled. With his eyes closed, he lifted his right hand and started drawing on the recently formed white drawing board with his finger as his brush. With each stroke, an illusionary line would appear on the drawing board. That illusionary line would seem formless to others and they would not be able to see it, as if there was no line to begin with. Since there was no brush and his fingers were only sweeping by the board, it seemed as if there were no signs left behind. Yet because Su Ming was using his heart to draw, he could see exactly what he was drawing every time his finger passed by the board. Perhaps more accurately speaking, he was drawing out what he saw in his mind. He was drawing out a feeling, an aura, and it was something that the naked eye could not see. Time passed by gradually. The whistling sounds from the chilling wind became stronger during the night, but the cave remained silent. The only sound inside was of Su Ming sweeping his finger repeatedly on the drawing board. However, that sound was too weak in the face of the wind and could not be heard. A night passed by. When the sun peeked out from the horizon, Su Ming's right hand stopped moving on the drawing board and he opened his eyes. He looked at the drawing board. To others, this drawing board would be no different from how it was before the previous night. It was still empty. Yet in Su Ming's eyes, there was a girl on the drawing board. The girl was dressed in white and she had a beautiful smile on her face. She looked alive, but she had no eyes. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he lifted his right hand and drew a few strokes where the girl's eyes should be. Immediately, the girl on the drawing board had eyes. There was an attractive sparkle in those eyes, yet within that sparkle was disgust, causing her entire demeanor to change, making it seem as if she was questioning Su Ming. "She is Bai Su," Su Ming whispered to himself softly. There was a serenity within his eyes that remained still and did not seem like it could be disturbed. He looked at the girl on the drawing board for a long time before he tapped the drawing board with his right hand. The drawing board immediately started trembling, and a thin layer of wood powder broke off from the surface of the board and jumped up. It looked like a veil that was lifted up, and that veil was the white figure he had drawn on the board. As the powder sprung up like a veil that was lifted, the cold wind from outside came into the cave and raised the powder. It blew past Su Ming's body and scattered away. When the powder disappeared, the drawing board returned to a blank slate once again in Su Ming's eyes. There were no longer any hints of the girl. It was just like Su Ming's heart. After a night of drawing with a calm mind, the slight shock brought by the similar face was gone like the wind. The shock would never be able to affect his heart. It was bright outside by then. Sunlight shone into the cave through the entrance like it was trying to consume darkness. The light stopped 3 feet before Su Ming. He could see sunlight shining down and illuminating the outlines of the cave, making it seem like a ring in the area 3 feet away from him. Yet the spot where he sat was still in darkness. In his silence, Su Ming placed the drawing board on the ground. A glint appeared in his eyes and he brought out Han Mountain Bell. Once the bell appeared, banging sounds immediately came from within. It was clear that the rod-like insect was still struggling inside and trying to break free. Su Ming looked at the bell and a chilling glare appeared in his eyes. When he fought against Sima Xin, besides understanding the power of the world from that one sword strike, he also obtained another thing, the insect within Han Mountain Bell. To him, this creature looked like a strange type of insect, but Sima Xin had said that this was a snake. Su Ming did not have time to think about it at that time, but now that he was in a relaxed and calm state, he lifted his right hand and flicked the shrunken Han Mountain Bell before him. The moment he flicked it, bell chimes echoed in the air, but these bell chimes did not spread out. They simply echoed within the bell and lasted for a long period of time. Faint, shrill shrieks could be heard from within the bell, but as the bell continued ringing and shaking, the insect's struggles quickly grew weaker, though it still continued crashing against the bell. Su Ming waited for the time it takes to burn another incense stick. When the insect inside the bell could no longer struggle and only let out incredibly weak and faint cries, Su Ming pointed at Han Mountain Bell with a finger. The bell instantly started growing. Once it was about the size of 10 feet, a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes and he made a strange sign with his right hand, albeit with jerky movements. This was one of the few methods to control the bell which appeared in his head after he took the bell as his own. Once he made that strange sign, Su Ming swiftly pushed his right hand forward. Han Mountain Bell immediately jolted. Gradually, ripples appeared on its surface, and the bell became transparent, allowing Su Ming to clearly see the small rod-like insect sealed inside. Its body was bent like a drawn-out bow, as if it could explode with a shocking force at any moment it wanted. There were no signs of it being injured on its body. There was also a ghastly, chilling glint in its eyes, as if it was waiting for a chance. It would have been fine if that was all, but Su Ming saw with his own eyes the insect letting out weak cries from its mouth even though it was full of vigor and just waiting for a chance to attack while looking forth with a fierce glare in its eyes. What a smart insect! Su Ming's eyes sparkled. The intelligence possessed by the strange insect made him sneer coldly. He immediately flicked the bell a few times with his right hand, causing the rumbling sounds to reverberate inside the bell, forming a large amount of sound waves to spread. The insect's face immediately twisted, but it endured all the attacks. The rhythmic cries eventually turned silent. If someone used sounds to determine whether the insect was still alive or dead, then he or she would most probably think that the insect was almost a goner. Yet Su Ming clearly saw that the insect was still bending its body in a stance, ready to attack at any time, even though it was trembling lightly. The glare that showed its cruelty and bloodlust had not diminished one bit, but instead became even stronger in the midst of its pain. This sight moved Su Ming. How in the world did Sai Ma Xin make this creature submit to him? He mumbled. The ferociousness within the creature was a clear sign that it was a gargantuan task to try and subjugate it. I'd like to see just what are the limits of this insect. Su Ming's eyes turned cold. He lifted his right hand, but he did not flick the bell this time. Instead, he slammed his palm against Han Mountain Bell. The moment his palm struck, the rumbling sounds inside reached their maximum volume. The loud sounds may have sounded weak outside the bell, but they were powerful and fierce inside, and those sounds turned into an insane force. The insect immediately trembled viciously. Its bent body seemed to be unable to withstand the force, and it gradually grew lax until it eventually completely unfurled, though it was still letting out shrill shrieks. As it continued shrieking, cracks seemed to appear on its body, and a milky white liquid flowed out of its body like blood. Its expression immediately grew dejected and its wings too fell to its sides, but the vicious look in its eyes did not diminish even the slightest. The viciousness had grown even stronger until it even looked like madness. The cruelty in its eyes became even stronger, and it looked like if it found a chance and escaped, it would rain down maddening vengeance on the person who made it suffer so much. Su Ming's expression remained passive as he lifted his right hand and slammed it against Han Mountain Bell once again. The volume of the rumbling sounds inside increased to a new height. Under these bell tolls, the insect's wings were instantly torn apart and broke into 2 pieces. The insect trembled and looked as if it was about to break down. Lots of blood flowed out and the creature lay within the bell like a lump of mud. It did not have a hint of strength left, as if its life was about to end. Yet Su Ming did not see a hint of surrender in its eyes, neither did he see despair. He only saw that burning ferociousness that almost swore that as long as life had not ended, it would never fade away. Su Ming lifted his right hand for the 3rd time. He knew that if he struck the bell this time, the insect would immediately die. After all, the insect excelled in speed and that piercing ability that shocked Su Ming, not in this type of endurance. After remaining silent for a moment, Su Ming slowly lowered his right hand. He looked at the small insect in Han Mountain Bell. Not only did he see ferociousness and tenaciousness within the insect's eyes, but he also saw its loyalty towards its master, Sai Ma Xin. The reason why he could see the loyalty hidden underneath that cruelty in the insect's eyes was because Su Ming had once seen the same look in his fire ape's, Xiao Hong's, eyes. Xiao Hong Su Ming could not help but remember the little monkey. He closed his eyes and only opened them after a long while. Calmness returned once again to his eyes, and as he looked at Han Mountain Bell, he suddenly said something in the bell's direction. "You're intelligent, so you must surely understand my words since you're so loyal to Sai Ma Xin. Why don't we conduct an experiment? Let's see just how important you are to Sai Ma Xin." When the insect heard Su Ming's words, it lifted its head in one swift motion, but it could not see Su Ming. It could only see the endless haziness that surrounded it. "I'm curious what Sai Ma Xin would do for you and what he would choose," Su Ming stated in a dull tone. He lifted his right hand suddenly and tapped the center of his brows with a finger. At the same time, a large amount of stone coins flew up on their own from Su Ming's storage bag and floated to midair. Once they surrounded Su Ming, the branding power erupted from within him. Chapter 244, Using Love as the Seed. The insect's unyielding spirit, cruelty, loyalty, and willingness to die made Su Ming understand that he could not turn that insect into his own pet unless he wasted a long amount of time, perhaps years or even longer. He would not be able to use Han Mountain Bell in that time, only keeping the creature trapped within it to break down its divine sense until he could eventually turn it into his own pet. However, Su Ming did not have the time for this, neither could he waste so much effort for it. Yet if he killed it just like that, Su Ming found it to be quite a waste. The insect's speed and piercing power left a deep impression on him. If he could make it his own, then without a doubt, it would become an incredibly powerful weapon in his hands. Since he found it a waste and did not have time to slowly bring it to his side, there was only one last method for Su Ming to use. He would have to forcefully leave his brand on its mind. He might end up destroying the insect's intelligence, but once it had his brand, it could be used immediately. Even if there was a possibility of the insect betraying him, it was still far better than killing it or not being able to use it. However, Su Ming had only left a brand on someone else's mind once, and that was on He Feng. Besides, He Feng was the one who had taught him how to use this art. In theory, he could use the brand on the insect. Nonetheless, in truth, Su Ming did not have much confidence in this. However, he had been practicing this branding art for quite some time. From what he understood, if the other party did not resist, then it would be easy for him to leave the brand. But if the other party started resisting, then the chances of failure would increase exponentially. If he wanted to search for the chances to increase his success whilst the other party was resisting, then he would have to find its weakness, just like how he would if he was fighting against it. Once he found its weakness, then Su Ming could use his branding art and enter its mind as it was weakened and leave his brand deep within it. It would be easier to find this weakness if the other party was a human, but with this strange insect that was about the size of finger's segment, things would not be so easy. Fortunately, Su Ming had noticed the insect's loyalty to Sai Ma Xin. That was why he said what he said. He wanted to create a weakness in the insect. Once this weakness appeared, then Su Ming would immediately break in with his divine sense. If he was successful, then he could turn the insect into his own. If he failed, then even if he would feel that it was a waste, he would not show mercy. During the very instant Su Ming's divine sense spread out, he gathered it on Han Mountain Bell and entered it before turning into a typhoon within that descended upon the strange, weakened insect. Once Su Ming completely surrounded it within his divine sense, he immediately sensed the insect's divine sense resisting and struggling viciously. That was a spirit that screamed that it would rather die than be controlled, and it turned into an impact that made Su Ming's divine sense falter for a moment. A thought struck Su Ming's mind. As the insect struggled, he gained a new understanding of divine senses and this art. By the looks of it, if my divine sense is strong enough, then I won't even need to find any weaknesses. I can just forcefully leave my brand behind under his divine sense. A crack opened up quietly in Han Mountain Bell. The moment the crack appeared, a bit of the insect's presence instantly darted out through the crack. Sai Ma Xin, I'm waiting for you to create this weakness for me. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes and he gathered his divine sense around the struggling insect. At that moment, on the first summit of the great frozen plains of Freezing Sky Clan was an incredibly extravagant cave abode that was located near the top of the mountain. From the outside, that cave abode looked like a towering hall, and Sai Ma Xin was sitting cross-legged within with a sullen face as he meditated with his eyes closed. He was forbidden to leave, and for the next few months, he could not escape the mountain. At that moment, he was remembering the battle with Su Ming in his head. That battle made him truly understand his opponent's power. To him, Su Ming was like a thorn stuck in his throat, and it was unbearable for him. Ever since Sai Ma Xin was born, everything had been easy for him. It had continued even after he entered Freezing Sky Clan. He was regarded highly by the older generation of the school and worshipped by those of the same generation. Besides, he was good at forming good relationships with other people. It could be said that he had an innumerable amount of friends within Freezing Sky Clan. Many of the girls and women among them had been planted with the berserker seed of love. The older generation of the school knew about this, but did not stop him. Their actions relieved him. When he was out traveling to practice the great art of heartless berserker seed, those who caught his eye would find it hard to escape from his grasp. In truth, his next target was Bai Su. That girl had a huge background that many of the disciples did not know. They only knew that she was a common disciple in the 7th summit. But Sai Ma Xin once accidentally learned that her father was one of the people in the 7th layer within the 9 layers of Heaven Gate. Sai Ma Xin did not know the details. After all, Heaven Gate was also a sacred and mysterious place to him. That place was the true core and the gathering place of the most powerful forces within Freezing Sky Clan. The disciples in Heaven Gate rarely came down and appeared before the disciples of the summits in the Great Frozen Plains. One of them was in the sky, and the other on earth. They lived separately as if they were in 2 completely different worlds. Becoming a disciple of Heaven Gate was practically the dream of every single person staying in the summits of the Great Frozen Plains. Yet only the lords of the summits could enter Heaven Gate. If they were not these people, the disciples would need to go through Freezing Sky Cave and retrieve 1,000 shaman heads before they could enter. I must enter Heaven Gate. Sai Ma Xin clenched his fists. He did not harbor any sort of feelings for Bai Su, but as he got in touch with her, he found that Bai Su loved him. Of course, this sort of love was fostered slowly using various methods while he was traveling outside. His goal was not to plant the berserker seed of love within her. After all, Sai Ma Xin was still wary of Bai Su's father in Heaven Gate. Yet this did not prevent him from approaching her, even if he had no thought of planting the berserker seed of love within her. He wanted to use her to help him obtain the right to enter Freezing Sky Cave. After all, Freezing Sky Cave could only be opened with 1,000 shaman heads, and he was far from having enough heads. After all, unless the shamans invaded their land in a large force, he would need to venture out deep into the world outside Sky Mist Barrier to obtain 1,000 shaman heads. This was a little difficult for him. His plan was to enter Freezing Sky Cave first and increase his power in there. Once he was done, he would go out and retrieve the shaman heads. He had more confidence with this plan. This method, which was akin to cheating, was not allowed within Freezing Sky Clan. The others would not be able to understand why this was not allowed, but they could not do anything about it. But Sai Ma Xin did not want to go along with the rules. That was why he set his sights on Bai Su. As long as there was someone within Heaven Gate who opened Freezing Sky Cave for a disciple of the summits in the Great Frozen Plains, then he would be able to achieve his dreams. Besides, he had the confidence of succeeding with his great art of heartless berserker seed, even if it was at the cost of sacrificing all the people. Once he succeeded, then his power would increase exponentially. When that time came, he would not have to worry about not being able to find berserker children. It might require a lot of time, but he believed that it was worth it. That was right until he met Su Ming. More accurately speaking, it was right until he fought against Su Ming. An avaricious thought appeared in his mind. He wanted to plant a berserker seed in Su Ming's body and turn him into his berserker son. By doing so, his chances of success in clearing Freezing Sky Cave would not only increase by several fold, the power he would gain would also increase, and it would also be largely different from what he would gain with his previous plans. There were a lot of benefits in this. There was even a high possibility that he would not need all of his berserker children to die. These benefits made Sai Ma Xin's heart pound in excitement. Bai Su already promised me that she would speak to her father about this and that she would do everything that she can to make her father agree. She even told me that her father has never refused any of her requests before. This matter is practically in the bag. I just don't know how long it'll take, but now, I won't have to hurry either right now. The most important thing for me is to make Su Ming into my berserker son. Ma Xin closed his eyes and a myriad of thoughts swam through his head. It's a pity that I can't leave the mountain. Even when the time is up and I can move about freely, it'll be difficult for me to get in touch with Su Ming Ha. If I knew this was the case, I should have given up on Han Mountain Bell and made friends with him, then planted the berserker seed within him. Ma Xin frowned with his eyes closed. As he was immersed in his thoughts, a thought suddenly struck his head. Bai Su. Ma Xin opened his eyes and a sparkle appeared within them. When Su Ming saw Bai Su, there was clearly something different about him, and he didn't seem like he was faking it. A glint appeared within Ma Xin's eyes and his lips gradually curled up in a smile. Use love as a hook, turn it into the berserker seed, and when it blooms, the love felt will turn into nothingness. During that instant, the seed will absorb all the life from that person. If I can create the method of using love to train the heartless art, then I can make changes to it. I'll use Bai Su as the hook and plant a berserker seed in Su Ming. Ma Xin mumbled, and a heartless form of maliciousness was clear in his smile. Su Ming, once I've set my eyes on you, you won't be able to run. A glint appeared in Ma Xin's eyes, yet at that moment, his expression suddenly changed and he lifted his head swiftly. He also rushed out of his cave abode and looked at the 9th summit, which was located far in the distance. My snake! Ma Xin's pupils shrank and his expression instantly grew dark. He could sense his treasured snake's presence. Ever since Su Ming captured his snake, its presence had vanished. With its sudden appearance now, it jerked at the faint connection tying Ma Xin's heart with it. In truth, he had only managed to make the snake acknowledge him as its master because he accidentally obtained a blood picture some time ago. That picture had existed for a long time, and he only discovered the use of the picture after a long amount of time spent on researching through many ancient scrolls. Its use was to allow him to form a connection with certain strange creatures and control them by making them acknowledge him as their master. That blood picture belonged to the shamans living outside Sky Mist Barrier. However, the picture Ma Xin obtained was already torn, and he could not use it for stronger creatures. That was why when he met the snake and witnessed its might along with realizing that the snake was still a baby, he used the blood picture without any hesitation. Right now, he could clearly feel the connection formed by the blood picture being attacked. Although there was little sign of it being whittled down, after a moment, when the snake's presence started fading away slowly, Ma Xin grew hesitant. Chapter 245. He does not want you, but I do. Ma Xin knew that the disappearance of the snake's presence was not due to it being subjugated by Su Ming. It got sealed within Han Mountain Bell, just like how it had been previously sealed. Yet even though he knew about it, he became hesitant, and soon that hesitance turned into cold detachment. Planting the berserker seed is the most important thing at the moment. The snake is in Su Ming's hands now. I might not have had much contact with him, but I can tell that he's a decisive person. He won't drag things out and hesitate to take action. If he can't subjugate the snake, then he'll definitely think of ways to kill it. If that's the case, since you're going to die, either way you might as well help me before you die. At least your death will be worthwhile then. Ma Xin suppressed the pain of losing the snake and a determined look appeared in his eyes. It's a pity the snake still hasn't grown up. Forget it. Ma Xin lifted his right hand abruptly and slammed it against his chest. The cloth covering his chest instantly turned into shreds and disappeared, revealing a round blood-red picture on his chest. That blood-red picture looked like the sun, but if anyone took a closer look, they would see that there was a faint shadow of the rod insect within. It's a pity about that snake, but there's only a thin barren thread within it. It won't be able to return to its roots and become a barren. It's just a strange creature created by many barren threads from another barren treasure. This is just my guess, but perhaps the barren threads don't even exist. If I give up on this creature, the chances of me planting a berserker seed within Su Ming will be higher. This is worth it. Ma Xin's eyes sparkled, and once his right hand patted his chest, he quickly trailed his finger in the outlines of the round blood-red picture. As his finger trailed through the picture, cold air seeped out of his skin from the spots his finger passed by. Ma Xin's expression remained passive and detached. Soon, once his finger reached the end and arrived at where he started, The blood-red picture on his chest instantly started moving and eventually broke off from his skin. That blood-red circle was like a layer of skin. As it was slowly falling off his chest, many sticky threads could be seen connecting Sima Xin's skin to the picture. The sticky threads looked so repulsive that people would hurl just by looking at them, but Sima Xin's expression still remained passive and did not change. As the blood-red circle separated from his body, the threads were gradually cut off. When the circle eventually floated up before Sima Xin, all the threads had been cut off. A strange light appeared within Sima Xin's eyes and he bit his tongue to cough out blood. It fell on the blood-red circle that looked like skin and was quickly absorbed into it. Before Bai Su does what I want her to do, I must first create an emptiness within Su Ming's heart. Only by doing so will she have a higher chance of success. That snake will become the emptiness in his heart that will form the connection between me and Su Ming. The more you want to control the snake, the stronger that connection will be. Once he tries to control the snake and it dies, then he'll sink in deeper. The more he feels disappointed and regretful, the higher my chances will be to plant the hook. Sima Xin's lips twisted into a dark smile and he lifted his right hand once again to tap the center of his brows. Great art of heartless berserker seed. There was an indescribably ghastly tone in his voice as his words left his lips. The skin-like red circle before him instantly started burning. As it burned, the vague shadow of the rod insect in the red circle started trembling furiously and sounded as if it was letting out silent screams of pain. At the same time, in Su Ming's cave abode located on the 9th summit, the dispirited rod insect's body suddenly twisted within Han Mountain Bell. The insect, which was lying at death's gate, let out shrill, pained cries. As it cried out, the cruelty and viciousness in its eyes wavered, and the loyalty hidden within the depths of that cruelty became a look of one who's lost. White mist left the insect's body. There was no heat coming from that white mist, yet as it spread out, the rod insect's body started burning. So this is your master. Because he did not want you to be subjugated by me, he would rather kill you cruelly. Su Ming's voice echoed within Han Mountain Bell and seeped into the rod insect's soul. That insect possessed a high amount of intelligence and could understand Su Ming's words. The cruel light in its eyes grew dim and the hidden loyalty also became tainted by a thick veil of bewilderment. It was as if no matter how much intelligence it possessed, it just did not understand why its own master would want it dead. He wants you dead because you were captured by me. I don't know how long you've been with Sima Xin, but this must be the first time you were captured by someone. Even if I release you and you're captured the second or the third time, and even if the person who captured you isn't me, there is only one ending for you. And here you are, so loyal to a master like this. It's hilarious, but at the same time, I pity you. Every single one of Su Ming's words echoed within Han Mountain Bell like thunder and struck the rod insect's heart, making the cruelty in its eyes shatter completely, revealing the loyalty hidden underneath it. However, that loyalty was now tainted by bewilderment and also grief. Su Ming was watching all of it with his expression of cool detachment. However, his heart was shaken. He did not think the insect's intelligence would be so high. By the looks of it, it could even be said that its intelligence did not lose to Xiao Hong. However, since Xiao Hong was a fire ape, it was born with human-like intelligence. Yet the insect already possessed such a high amount of intelligence even though it was so tiny. It just went to show just how extraordinary this creature was. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. When the rod insect was clearly feeling shaken as its body was being burnt and its life force was quickly diminishing, Su Ming suddenly asked in a low growl, "Your former master wants to kill you. Are you still going to remain loyal to him?" His voice was like rumbling thunder. As it echoed in Han Mountain Bell, Su Ming's divine sense, which had surrounded the insect, immediately spotted a crack in the insect's mental defenses. The moment the crack appeared, the stone coins gathered outside Su Ming's body all jolted simultaneously and shattered into dust. They scattered out, and a large amount of spiritual aura surged out from the shattered stones. It rushed into the open path in Su Ming's body like a wave, and once they circulated through the path once, they gathered in his head, allowing him to muster up an even stronger divine sense. When his divine sense rushed into Han Mountain Bell and fell upon the insect, it charged into the crack in its soul with a force strong enough to split apart bamboo and stormed straight into its soul. The instant he entered the insect's soul, Su Ming's divine sense noticed a gigantic, floating red picture of a circle inside the insect's clouded mental world. That thing was like human skin, or perhaps more accurately, it was human skin with the picture of a circle drawn on it. At that moment, it was floating in mid-air, burning. Su Ming could see the shadow of the rod snake within the red circle. It trembled, but did not resist. It stayed inside instead and simply allowed the skin to burn and render it weaker. In the span of a few breaths, most of the human skin turned into ashes and there was only a small segment left. By the looks of it, with just another few more breaths, it would completely disappear. Once the human skin completely disappeared, the rod snake's shadow inside would also disappear, and the strange insect would die. Sai Ma Xin, you truly are wicked. Su Ming might have predicted this, but when he saw it happening with his own eyes, he still found himself gaining new knowledge of Sai Ma Xin's ruthlessness. If he was Sai Ma Xin and the rod insect was exchanged with Xiao Hong, he knew that he would not be able to do this. Su Ming did not hesitate. He gathered up that powerful divine sense within the insect's soul and crashed it into the burning human skin. The moment it touched the human skin, Su Ming's heart suddenly trembled, and he felt that something was off. At that moment, a dim light started blinking on his physical body's chest, which remained sitting in his cave abode. The source of the flickering dim light came from the mysterious black stone hanging on his neck. As the light flickered, Su Ming's divine sense trembled within the insect's soul. Even if he has to kill his own pet, that Sai Ma Xin is still plotting against me even though I don't know what he's planning, it's definitely nothing good. When Su Ming's divine sense faltered, another portion of the small segment left of the human skin burned away. By then, there was only a small part left. The rod snake had become incredibly weak and looked like its soul was about to shatter and scatter at any moment. Yet it seemed like it had lost all will to fight. It simply lay within the skin and waited for its death. There were only two paths lying before Su Ming right now. Either he would choose to save the rod insect and get caught in Sai Ma Xin's trap, or he would give up on the insect. He was plotting against Sai Ma Xin, and Sai Ma Xin was also plotting against him. The two of them did not know of the other person's goals and all the remaining moves they had. Yet they were using this rod insect as a medium and were fighting against each other in a form that was different from a true, physical brawl. Su Ming only hesitated for a moment before he made his decision. He did not bother about Sai Ma Xin's unknown plot against him and covered what little remained of the human skin with his divine sense before breaking through the fire and into the shadow of the rod insect that seemed to have lost all will to fight and had given into despair. Even if Sai Ma Xin wants to use your death and force me into a trap, this is my experiment. Even if you have to die, you cannot die in his hands. The moment Su Ming's divine sense rushed in, the rod insect shuddered. He doesn't want you, but I do. A mighty voice traveled out from within Su Ming's divine sense and rushed into the rod insect's soul. Its soul immediately started trembling, and the shadow in the human skin lifted its head. The dark light within its eyes seemed to have become different. He doesn't want you, but I do. That sentence echoed within the highly intelligent rod insect's soul and made that something within its eyes gradually replace the dull look. With barely any form of resistance from the rod insect, Su Ming's divine sense left a deep brand on its soul. When he left the brand on its soul, the human skin had already burned to ashes. Yet the very moment before it was completely burnt to ashes, the shadow within the skin vanished. Right then, the human skin before the sitting Sai Ma Xin on the first summit was also completely burnt to ashes. Yet his expression drastically changed and he stood up, as if he wanted to rush out of the first summit, but he stopped himself and clenched his fists. His expression turned incredibly dark, as if there was an anger within him strong enough to burn the heavens. How could it not be dead? He suddenly understood Su Ming's plans. He wanted to use Sai Ma Xin and subjugate the strange snake through him. We have reached the end of chapter 245. Su Ming has opened a door that can never be closed again, and the soul-sealing gate hints at a power that could change the balance of the entire land of South Morning. Thank you for spending your time in the sanctuary at PandaAudioBooks. If today's exploration of the ancient depths fascinated you, please give the video a like and share your theories in the comments. We are entering a phase where every detail matters. What do you think lies behind the soul-sealing gate? Let's hear your predictions below. Until our next session, keep your spirit focused and your path true.